I got a comment a few weeks back that I haven't stopped thinking about. A guy 62 years old. He said every morning he's up at 5:30, showers, packs his lunch, gets in the car, drives 45 minutes each way. He's been doing it for decades. His kids are grown. His mortgage has maybe 2 years left. He's got close to $400,000 saved up, and he said he's scared to quit. Not because he loves the job. Not because he needs the paycheck to cover groceries. He said he keeps watching videos that tell him he needs $1,500,000 to survive retirement in 2026. So he stays. I want to sit with that for a second. A 62-year-old man, financially stable by almost any real-world measure, waking up before sunrise every single morning because a number someone invented is making him feel like he's not enough. That's not financial planning. That's a trap. The $1 million rule didn't come from your life. It came from an industry that gets paid a percentage of every dollar you keep invested. The longer you stay in the system, the more they collect. That math isn't complicated. The incentive is to make retirement feel just out of reach, always. And it's working. People are trading their last healthy years for a finish line that keeps moving. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down exactly why the $1 million benchmark doesn't apply to most of you. I'll show you the actual spending data that the standard retirement formula conveniently ignores. And I'll walk you through the one thing most people in their late 50s never figure out: how to close the Medicare gap legally without going back to a corporate job. You can retire with under $500,000. Not comfortably, not in theory, in practice, with the math to back it up. But first, there's a rule that's been living rent-free in your head since your 30s, and we need to clear it out. Let me tell you how the standard retirement formula actually gets built. A financial advisor sits down with you, looks at your current salary, and says, in retirement, you'll need about 80% of what you're making now. That's the rule. The 80% rule. It's been around for decades. It's printed in every personal finance textbook, and almost nobody questions it. Then they take that number, inflate it forward every year by 3% for inflation, project it out 25 or 30 years, and hand you a target. That target, more often than not, lands somewhere between $1,200,000 and $1,800,000. And if you're 58 with $420,000 in your account, that number feels like a verdict. Here's the problem. The 80% rule assumes you will spend money the same way at 78 that you do at 55. Same energy, same appetite, same lifestyle demands. It treats your future self like a slightly cheaper version of your current self, running on the same track forever. That is not how people actually age. Researchers at the Rand Corporation tracked real retirement spending over time, and what they found is almost the opposite of what the formula assumes. After age 65, inflation-adjusted spending drops, not slightly. On average, it falls around 1.7% per year for single retirees and about 2.4% per year for couples. Year after year, in real terms, people spend less. There's a name for this pattern. Economists call it the spending smile. Spending is relatively high in the early years of retirement when you're traveling and active. It dips through the mid-70s. Then it edges back up near the end, mostly from healthcare costs. But the middle years, the decade most people are terrified about running out of money in, those are actually the cheapest years. That single data point changes the entire retirement equation. If your spending is declining in real terms, you don't need your portfolio to cover 30 years of flat or rising withdrawals. You need it to bridge a gap, a much smaller one than the formula told you. Now let's talk about the 4% of people who actually hit $1 million. Because if you're not in that group, and statistically, close to 80% of Americans are not, you've been measuring yourself against a benchmark built for someone else's financial life. Nearly 60% of Americans heading into retirement have less than $10,000 saved. That's the actual median reality. You, sitting at $350,000 or $450,000, are genuinely ahead of the majority of this country. The shame you've been carrying around, the sense that you're behind, that you missed something. That's what happens when you apply the top 4%'s playbook to a life that looks nothing like theirs. If you're 60 and your account hasn't crossed $500,000, you are not a failure. You've been using the wrong measuring stick. The one more year trap is what happens when you keep using it. You tell yourself, just one more year, then I'll have enough. Then the market dips. Then inflation spikes. Then the target shifts again. And 3 years later, you're 65 and your knees hurt and you're still optimizing for a number you never actually defined. That is the real cost of the 80% rule. Not the math. The years. Once you understand that your spending will naturally slow down as you age, the whole withdrawal calculation changes. And that's where a different kind of math comes in. Not the formula you were handed, the one that actually fits your life. Let me come back to the man from the comment section. 62 years old, $400,000 saved, kids are out of the house, mortgage almost gone. Every financial influencer he's watched has told him he's not ready, so he keeps driving to work in the dark. Let's run his actual numbers, not the formula's numbers, his. Say he retires at 62. He doesn't touch Social Security yet. He lets it sit and grow. At 62, he starts withdrawing from his portfolio at around 5.5% annually. That's $22,000 a year from his $400,000. Uncomfortable, sure, but not his only income. Now factor in what happens at 67. He files for Social Security. Based on current averages, a couple filing at full retirement age brings in around $3,208 a month, roughly $38,500 a year, after the 2.8% KOCHLA adjustment that took effect January 1st, 2026. That income is inflation protected. It shows up every month regardless of what the S&P 500 does. The moment Social Security kicks in, his portfolio withdrawal pressure drops significantly. He might only need $10,000 or $12,000 a year from his savings to cover the gap. At that rate, his $400,000 doesn't just survive. It has a real chance of outlasting him. I used to believe the 4% rule was non-negotiable. That $500,000 meant you could only safely pull $20,000 a year, full stop. I held that view for a long time. What I missed was this: the 4% rule was never designed as a ceiling. It was designed as a floor, a worst-case survival rate across 30-year periods. And it didn't account for Social Security income layering in halfway through, or for the natural decline in spending that RAND's data actually shows. Researcher Michael Kitzes ran the 4% rule through 115 rolling 30-year historical periods. What he found was striking. In more than two-thirds of those scenarios, retirees ended with more money than they started with. In roughly half, they ended with more than double. The catastrophic run-out-of-money outcome that keeps people working past 62. It's genuinely rare. Not impossible, but rare. And it becomes rarer still when Social Security is part of the picture. That doesn't mean spend carelessly. It means the terror is being sold to you at a markup. There's also a tool many late starters don't know exists yet. Under the Secure 2.0 Act, if you're between 60 and 63 years old in 2026, you can make what's called a super catch-up contribution to your 401k. Up to $11,250 on top of the standard limit. If you have 2 or 3 years left before you want to exit, that's a meaningful amount of pre-tax money you can still push in. It doesn't fix everything, but it closes a gap. Here's the trade-off nobody talks about clearly enough. The people who delay retirement out of fear often build a larger portfolio, but they frequently arrive at retirement with less capacity to enjoy it. The research on excessive frugality in retirement tells a consistent story. Most retirees die with the majority of their wealth unspent. They oversaved. They underlived. They optimized for a number and neglected the life the number was supposed to fund. That is a real cost. It just doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. The math says you can make this work with under $500,000. Social Security covers more than most people model. Spending naturally eases as you age. Withdrawal flexibility, not rigidity, is what actually protects a portfolio long term. But I know what's sitting in the back of your mind right now. You can accept all of this. You can believe the math. And you can still get stuck on one question that none of these numbers answer. What do you do about health insurance for the 10 years before Medicare kicks in? Because without that piece, none of the rest of it moves. That's exactly where we're going next. I hear some version of this in almost every comment thread on retirement videos. But what about health insurance? You can't get Medicare until you're 65, and they're right. That gap, 55 to 65, is the single most cited reason people feel trapped at a job they've mentally already left. I've been close to this calculation myself. When I sat down and looked at my own numbers seriously for the first time, the retirement math wasn't what scared me. It was the thought, what happens if I get seriously ill at 58 with no employer coverage? That fear doesn't feel abstract. It feels like a monster under the bed that keeps you from ever getting out of the work cycle. So let's actually look at the mechanism, because the gap is real, but it's not as unmanageable as the fear makes it feel. First, the context you need for 2026. The expanded ACA subsidies that were put in place during the pandemic years officially expired January 1st, 2026. The subsidy cliff is back. That means if your income exceeds 400% of the federal poverty level, you could be looking at full-price marketplace premiums, and those are not small numbers. For a 60-year-old, unsubsidized premiums can run $800 to $1,100 a month, or more, depending on the state. That's a real cost that has to be planned for, not wished away. But here's what most people don't realize. The ACA subsidy system doesn't measure your wealth. It measures your reported income, and those are two very different things. You can have $450,000 in savings and still qualify for substantial ACA subsidies if you structure your withdrawals correctly. This is where three specific moves matter. The first is understanding how your income actually gets reported. Your modified adjusted gross income, your MAGI, is what the ACA uses to calculate your subsidy, not your net worth, not your total withdrawals, just the taxable portion of what flows onto your return. This distinction is the entire game. The second move is using your taxable brokerage account first. If you have money sitting in a regular investment account, not an IRA or 401k, withdrawals from that account are only taxed on the gains portion. If you bought $40,000 worth of index funds and they're now worth $65,000 and you sell the whole position, only $25,000 shows up as income on your return. You could pull $65,000 out of that account and report less than half of it as MAGI. That keeps your subsidy eligibility intact while still funding your actual life. The third move is deliberately delaying withdrawals from your traditional 401k and IRA accounts during the Medicare gap years. Every dollar you pull from a pre-tax retirement account adds directly to your MAGI. Dollar for dollar, pull $40,000 from your 401k at 59 and your subsidy shrinks or disappears entirely. So you ring-fence those accounts. You live on taxable savings and manage your reported income strategically, keeping it low enough to stay well inside the subsidy window. Do this cleanly, and a couple in their early 60s with $450,000 in savings could realistically qualify for ACA coverage with premiums in the $200 to $400 a month range, sometimes lower. The coverage is real. The math is legal. It just requires knowing which account to touch and in what order. And then, at 65, Medicare arrives. The bridge closes behind you. The healthcare problem doesn't go away, but it becomes manageable when you stop treating it as an all or nothing wall and start treating it as an income management problem. That's all it is. Once you've solved that, the last chain holding you to the desk is gone. But there's one more number I want to show you. One that almost nobody factors into their retirement decision. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here is a statistic that will reframe everything we've talked about. The World Health Organization tracks something called healthy life expectancy. Not how long you live. How long you live well. Mobile, independent, without chronic disease running the show. In the United States, that number is 63.9 years. Let that land for a second. The standard retirement age is 65, which means if you wait for the traditional finish line, you may be arriving right at the edge of the window where your body is still fully yours to use. Not dramatically, not all at once. But the data is consistent. Stanford medicine researchers confirmed that the human body goes through accelerated aging at specific points. One around age 44, another, sharper one, right around age 60. The decline isn't a slow, steady slope. It comes in waves. And one of those waves hits right in the years most people are telling themselves to hold on just a little longer. Now put a number on the time. The average person spends roughly 90,000 hours working over the course of a career. Retiring at 55 instead of 65 gives you back approximately 19,200 hours. That's not a metaphor. That's time to move your body, be present with people you love, sleep without an alarm, and do the things that actually require physical capacity to do. That time has a cost if you don't take it, and the cost compounds. Let's run two versions of the same person. Version 1. He stays at the job from 62 to 65 because the portfolio isn't at $1 million yet. He gets there. Or close. At 65, he retires with a larger account and a body that has absorbed 3 more years of commute stress, disrupted sleep, and the low-grade physical toll of sedentary office work. He enters retirement in the highest risk window for accelerated physical decline. Research is clear that poor physical fitness raises mortality risk by roughly 4 times. More than smoking, the money is there. The energy to use it is not what it was. Version 2. He walks out at 62 with $450,000. He manages his MAGI, secures ACA coverage for a few $100s a month, and uses the next 3 years doing the things that require a working body. He hikes, he sleeps, he lifts weights 3 times a week because he now has mornings. He delays Social Security until 67, letting that benefit grow. When Medicare arrives, he's in better physical condition than most people who waited. Same starting savings, radically different outcomes. The financial industry will tell you the risk of retiring early is running out of money. That risk is real and worth planning for. But there's another risk that never makes it onto a retirement planning worksheet. The risk of arriving at financial freedom with a body that can no longer do what you saved up to do. That trade-off is permanent. You can rebuild a portfolio. You cannot buy back the years between 62 and 65 once they're gone. The most valuable asset you have in your late 50s and early 60s is not your 401k balance. It's the physical capacity you still have right now. That depreciates on its own schedule, regardless of what the market does. Let's bring this back to the man from the comments section. 62 years old, $400,000 saved, alarm at 5:30, lunch packed, driving in the dark. He doesn't need $1,500,000. He never did. He needs a plan built around how retirement spending actually behaves, not how a formula designed for the wealthiest 4% says it should. He needs to understand that Social Security, layered in at the right time, changes the entire withdrawal picture. He needs to know that the Medicare gap is an income management problem with a real, legal solution. And he needs to know that the years between now and 65 are not a liability. They are the most physically capable years he has left. That's the whole map. Look, I can't tell you what the market will do next month. I don't know what your utility bill looks like or whether your roof needs replacing in 2 years. I'm not going to pretend the plan is airtight under every possible scenario, because no plan is. But I'm certain of one thing. Time is the only currency you cannot earn back. You can recover from a down market. You can adjust a withdrawal rate. You can find ways to cut spending in a bad year. What you cannot do is go back to 61 and reclaim the years you spent waiting for a number that kept moving. You don't need more money. You need a more honest accounting of what the money you already have can actually do. The spending smile says your costs will ease. The MAGI strategy closes the healthcare gap. Social Security is inflation-protected income waiting to be optimized. And the research says your portfolio, managed with flexibility, has a strong historical track record of surviving and often growing through a 30-year retirement. That is not a guarantee. It's a probability that the industry has been systematically underselling to you. Stop checking your portfolio every day. It does not help your returns and it does cost you sleep. If the framework we walked through today helped clear some of the weight you've been carrying around, hit subscribe. We do this every week. Real numbers, real mechanisms, nothing to sell you. Drop a comment below. Tell me how many hours you're planning to take back. See you next time.